The plot has thickened for Lil Durk as new court documents have surfaced connecting his name to another murder from years ago. This development comes at a challenging time, with Durk already entangled in serious legal battles. The federal authorities are revisiting cases that many thought were long forgotten, now tying them to the rapper. One name making headlines is Stefan Mack, who was tragically killed in 2022. This new link suggests a disturbing pattern. But that's not all. Another individual, Octavia Redmond, who was connected to OTF Jam's family, also lost her life in early 2024. Could these cases be related? How deeply might Durk be involved? This unfolding story could jeopardize everything he has built. In January 2022, the murder of Stefan Mack outside Chicago's Youth Peace Center took a shocking turn as authorities linked Lil Durk to the crime. Investigators believe Mack's killing wasn't random but a targeted attack carried out by two gunmen lying in wait. New allegations claim Durk might have had a hand in orchestrating the hit by offering money to those willing to eliminate Mack's associates. While these accusations are severe, it's crucial to note that Durk has not been officially charged in Mack's murder. However, the claims have added another layer of complexity to his already challenging legal situation. In addition to the intense legal battles in Chicago, Lil Durk is now facing a separate and equally serious case in Los Angeles, where prosecutors have accused him of financing a murder-for-hire plot aimed at rapper Quando Rondo. The allegations stem from the violent incidents that have surrounded both rappers and their respective entourages, particularly in the aftermath of the tragic death of King Von in 2020. Authorities allege that Durk's role in the plot wasn't just a passive connection but an active involvement in funding the retaliation against members of Rondo's camp, including the fatal shooting of Rondo's cousin Ella Poob. The case has sent shockwaves through the hip-hop community, as the details suggest a dark undercurrent beneath Durk's otherwise rising career. Federal investigators have been working meticulously to tie Durk to the crime through various pieces of evidence, including financial transactions and communication logs that allegedly link him to the orchestration of the murder-for-hire scheme. The prosecution claims that Durk not only funded the operation but also played a significant role in coordinating the actions that led to the tragic shooting. Despite his legal team's vigorous efforts to secure his release, the court's decision to deny a $3.3 million bond request has made it clear that the severity of the charges is weighing heavily on the judge's decision. And in a high-profile case like this, where the stakes are incredibly high, the court's reluctance to grant bond further underscores the seriousness of the accusations against Durk. This decision has also further fueled public debate, with some questioning whether the rapper's fame and wealth are influencing the legal process, while others argue that the evidence against him is too compelling to overlook. As the case continues to unfold, Durk's future both legally and professionally remains uncertain. The legal battle surrounding Lil Durk has taken on an even more intense dimension as federal investigators delve deep into his social media activity. This scrutiny is not only a reflection of the severity of the charges against him, but it also demonstrates how much modern law enforcement has come to rely on digital footprints to piece together alleged criminal activity. What's made the situation even more complicated is the federal government's increasing focus on Durk's online presence, especially after a series of events that have linked his social media posts to potentially incriminating details about the alleged murder plot. The beginning of this intensified scrutiny dates back to the aftermath of the tragic death of OTF affiliate Mack. Mack's death, which authorities believe may have been the catalyst for the violent retaliation that followed, sent ripples through the rap community. It was a devastating blow not only to his family and friends but also to the OTF collective, a group that Durk has been closely associated with for years. Mack's death marked a pivotal point in Durk's life, and the public's reaction to his grief and the subsequent events has not been without its controversies. Shortly after Mack's death, Durk posted an Instagram story that included an image of the OTF Only the Family logo. While seemingly innocuous at first glance, federal investigators have suggested that this post could be seen as more than just a tribute to a fallen friend. Some law enforcement officials believe the timing and the context of the image could imply that Durk was indirectly referencing Mack's death or even signaling something to his followers about the circumstances surrounding it. Theories have surfaced suggesting that the post was a coded message, a tribute to a fallen brother, or perhaps a cryptic indicator of the situation that was unfolding in Durk's circle. Regardless of the interpretation, the authorities wasted no time in linking this post to their ongoing investigation. Then came the release of Durk's track Aha. The song, a fierce declaration of his resilience and survival in the face of adversity, quickly became a fan favorite. However, the federal government saw the lyrics in a much darker light. Investigators have placed the track under heavy scrutiny, alleging that Durk may have used the song to reference Mack's death and the revenge plot that followed. Lyrics from the song, along with the timing of its release, raised red flags for those looking for connections to the violent events that had taken place in the weeks prior. The song's bold lyrics, which emphasize Durk's street credibility and no-nonsense attitude, seem to echo themes of retaliation and vengeance, elements that aligned eerily with the murder-for-hire charges Durk was facing. At the core of the federal government's case is the assertion that Durk's music and his social media activity were not simply expressions of personal grief or street culture, but part of a larger, coordinated effort to send messages to those involved in the violent retaliations. Federal investigators are meticulously combing through the lyrics and comparing them to the timeline of events leading up to Mac's death and the alleged retaliation against Quando Rondo's camp. In doing so, they aim to show that Durk was more than just an artist, but a key figure in orchestrating a violent network operating under the guise of a music collective. The scrutiny of Durk's social media is emblematic of how law enforcement has adapted to the age of digital communication. In the past, investigators would rely heavily on physical evidence, witness testimony, and traditional investigative techniques. But in today's world, where celebrities like Durk have vast social media followings and use platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok to connect with fans, the digital landscape has become just as important in criminal investigations. Durk's posts, whether they be subtle or blatant, provide a glimpse into his life and mindset, and in this case, federal investigators are reading them like a blueprint for understanding his actions and intentions. What makes the situation even more precarious for Durk is the way these social media posts have been woven into the federal case. In their eyes, every post, every tweet, and every caption can be evidence of intent. Durk's seemingly casual sharing of the OTF logo or his emotional tribute to Mac is being analyzed for underlying meanings, especially in light of the charges against him. Investigators are not simply concerned with what Durk says directly, but with what he may be implying through the imagery and themes in his posts. The federal government has become increasingly adept at reading between the lines, seeing connections in places where others might not. Durk's defense team, of course, is working tirelessly to counter the narrative that his social media posts are evidence of criminal intent. They argue that Durk, like many other public figures, uses his platform to express his emotions and support for those close to him. His posts, they contend, were not meant to incite violence or act as coded messages to his followers. Instead, they were part of his process of grieving and dealing with the loss of someone he considered family. They also argue that his music, like that of many hip-hop artists, often reflects the harsh realities of the world they come from, not necessarily an active call for violence. But with prosecutors now using the evidence from Durk's social media activity and lyrics to build their case, his defense team faces an uphill battle. The federal government's increasing reliance on digital evidence is a reflection of the changing landscape of criminal investigations. What once might have been dismissed as a simple social media post or a song lyric is now seen as potentially crucial evidence capable of tipping the scales in a case. For Durk, this is a moment of reckoning. The very platforms that have helped propel his career to new heights, connecting him with millions of fans worldwide, are now at the center of the investigation that could define his future. The scrutiny of his social media activity may seem like an invasion of privacy to some, but in the eyes of the law, it's a necessary part of the investigation. The case against him will not only hinge on physical evidence, but on the digital trail he's left behind. And as authorities continue to build their case, Durk's online presence will likely remain a focal point of the proceedings. The saga surrounding Durk is a reminder of how public figures must navigate the complexities of the digital age, where every post, every tweet, and every story can be analyzed and potentially used against them. For Durk, the fight for his freedom will not only be waged in the courtroom, but also in the court of public opinion, and his social media activity will continue to be a key battleground in that struggle. Investigators aren't solely relying on social media and music. Court filings show they've examined phone records, firearm purchases, and text messages to support their case. One alleged message found on a suspect's phone reportedly asked, "Did Durk give you that money?" implying payment for the hit. As this legal saga unfolds, the stakes for Lil Durk continue to rise, casting a shadow over his career and personal life. How this plays out could redefine his legacy forever. Chicago's streets have long been shaped by intense gang rivalries, with the Gangster Disciples and Black Disciples being among the most infamous groups. Stephon Mac was reportedly affiliated with a Gangster Disciples faction known as Smashville, which had ongoing conflicts with Lil Durk's OTF crew. As of now, Lil Durk remains in federal custody with charges mounting and new court details surfacing. His social media posts and song lyrics have become central to the federal investigation, showing that fame doesn't shield anyone from the past. Many wonder why Durk would risk so much, with some speculating it stems from the tragic loss of his brother. The murder of Durk's brother, Dante Banks Jr., better known as D-Thang, sent shockwaves through Chicago and the music industry on June 6, 2021. He was fatally shot outside Club O nightclub in Harvey, Illinois just after midnight. Reports indicated mounting tension that night. During the incident, a police officer named Mohammed was also injured, though details about who fired the shots remain unclear. Just hours later, another fatal shooting occurred on West 155th Street, which police suspected might have been a retaliatory hit. Losing D Thang was a devastating blow for Durk, both personally and professionally, as D Thang was a cornerstone of OTF. The streets buzzed with rumors of retaliation. Fast forward to January 7, 2022, when Mac was ambushed and killed, a crime federal investigators believe was a targeted retaliation for D Thang's murder. Authorities allege Durk financed Mac's assassination as part of a revenge plot against the gangster disciples thought to be behind D Thang's death. The long-standing feud between OTF and the gangster disciples runs deep, rooted in Chicago's violent gang history. Federal documents suggest Durk offered money to exact what the streets called justice for his brother's killing. Investigators claim this quest for vengeance eventually spiraled into a murder-for-hire plot targeting rapper Quando Rondo, linked to the death of Durk's close associate King Von in 2020. By the time Quando Rondo's cousin Sava Robinson was killed in 2022, investigators were already connecting the dots. They believe these acts were part of Durk's broader retaliation plan following the losses of King Von and D Thang. Adding another twist, rumors emerged that someone from Durk's inner circle may have turned informant. Court filings point to OTF Jam, a trusted OTF member, as potentially working with federal agents. Released from prison in 2022 after serving 12 years for attempted murder, Jam is now accused of feeding critical information to authorities. Reports suggest this wasn't just a minor betrayal, it was calculated and extensive, leaving Durk fighting for his freedom as legal troubles continue to mount. The legal case against Lil Durk is far from the result of mere coincidence or a stroke of luck on the part of federal investigators. It is the culmination of a carefully constructed, methodical investigation that spans years of scrutiny, both of Durk's public persona and his private associations. The weight of the charges against him, ranging from murder for hire to conspiracy, has sent shockwaves through the music industry and the streets alike. While much of the attention has been on Durk's social media activity and his music, the unraveling of his case goes much deeper, involving a number of individuals within his inner circle. Among them is Jam, a figure whose role in this case may turn out to be one of the most pivotal. Jam, once one of Durk's most trusted associates, had been involved in his operations for years, providing a crucial link between the rapper's public life and the gritty world of street dealings that Durk is often linked to. After serving 12 years in prison, Jam was released and initially seemed to re-establish himself as a loyal and valuable member of Durk's inner circle. In interviews following his release, he made it clear that he had stayed true to his commitments. He spoke at length about how he had been a steady source of financial support for Durk during difficult times and how he had worked to keep Durk's name clean while the rapper rose to fame. For many fans and close associates of Durk, Jam's loyalty seemed unquestionable. However, what appeared to be a picture-perfect story of loyalty and camaraderie soon began to show cracks. Whispers of betrayal began to circulate, and federal investigators quickly picked up on these rumors. While Jam had been considered a trusted insider, law enforcement suspected that his role in the OTF camp wasn't as clean-cut as he had portrayed it. It didn't take long before investigators started to connect the dots, revealing that Jam had potentially played a far more significant role in the darker side of the OTF crew's activities than anyone had imagined. The suspicion of Jam's betrayal began when investigators learned that he had seemingly shifted his loyalties after his release from prison. While initially Jam had stayed on the sidelines of Durk's growing fame and success, he soon re-engaged the world he had left behind with deeper ties to the crew's illegal activities. Reports suggest that Jam had been working closely with some of Durk's associates who were involved in illicit activities. Federal agents began to probe his movements and communications, tracking a trail of interactions that suggested Jam was far more involved than he had let on. In fact, it was his own words, spoken in interviews, that would eventually tie him to the case. Jam's statements to the press, where he boasted about his continued support for Durk and the OTF movement, would come back to haunt him. During his interviews, Jam made it clear that he had kept Durk's finances intact and helped him during rough periods, but he also seemed to imply a deeper, unspoken understanding between himself and Durk's crew. Federal agents seized on these comments, interpreting them as a possible indication of Jam's role in the street operations that had been linked to the crimes Durk was now facing. They began to scrutinize his every move, not just in terms of his financial contributions to Durk, but also his connections to individuals with violent histories and his involvement in the coordination of certain activities that had drawn the attention of law enforcement. As the investigation expanded, Jam's role became even murkier. Federal agents were able to establish connections between Jam and several figures linked to violent incidents surrounding Durk's crew. It wasn't long before they were able to trace his involvement in a number of key events that seemed to point to a much larger network of individuals operating under the guise of a legitimate music collective. The use of surveillance technology, wiretaps, and detailed financial records painted a picture of Jam as more than just a loyal supporter of Durk. In fact, investigators began to suspect that Jam may have been acting as an informant, or worse, someone who had become a key figure in facilitating and funding criminal activity. The more they uncovered, the clearer it became that Jam had a much deeper connection to the ongoing violence and retaliatory acts that had plagued Durk's life. The betrayal, if it could be confirmed, would be a devastating blow to Durk. As his legal team works tirelessly to defend him, one of the most pressing questions will be how much of the operation behind OTF and the violence surrounding it was orchestrated by individuals like Jam. Were his actions simply a matter of self-preservation after spending 12 years behind bars, or was he actively working against Durk? And most importantly, how much of the criminal activity was facilitated by someone Durk had once called a close ally? One of the most damning pieces of evidence that investigators were able to uncover was the involvement of Jam in the distribution of funds and resources related to the alleged murder-for-hire plot that Durk is now facing. Federal authorities have been able to track a series of financial transactions that they claim were used to fund the violent retaliation against members of Quando Rondo's camp. These funds were allegedly funneled through Jam, who after his release from prison was suspected of using his connections to move money around undetected. The trail of these transactions, which led back to Durk's associates, seemed to offer further confirmation that Jam had been instrumental in the operation, not just as a figurehead but as a key player in orchestrating the retaliation. But Jam's alleged betrayal didn't end with the financial dealings. As investigators dug deeper, they found evidence suggesting that Jam may have been complicit in the planning and execution of some of the violent acts tied to Durk's camp. The role he played, if any, in masterminding or facilitating the plot against Quando Rondo's associates is still unclear, but federal investigators are now working to build a case that would link Jam directly to the violence. The tension surrounding Jam's involvement has placed Durk in an increasingly difficult position. On one hand, Jam's betrayal, if it is confirmed, could serve as a key part of the defense's argument that Durk was unaware of the full extent of the illegal activities being carried out by those closest to him. On the other hand, it paints a picture of a man who, despite his rise to fame, may have struggled to escape the violent world that once defined him. For Durk, it's a reminder of how his past affiliations and the people he trusted have come back to haunt him, and how even the closest relationships can be tainted by betrayal and criminal activity. The case against him, now more complicated than ever, seems to be one that is fueled not just by the actions of a few individuals, but by the shifting alliances, personal betrayals, and murky relationships that have always existed in the shadows of his career. Allegedly, tensions sparked when Jam's child's mother sought legal assistance from Durk during her legal troubles, only to be ignored. Feeling disrespected, Jam reportedly flipped. Soon, rumors swirled that he was cooperating with authorities, wearing a wire and leaking sensitive information about Durk and his crew, OTF. Speculation about Durk's downfall was already circulating in the streets. Even rival artists like FBG Butta seemed to anticipate his arrest long before it happened, hinting at Durk's alleged involvement in past crimes. The accusations intensified after claims surfaced that Durk had ordered a hit on Jam's child's mother, Octavia Redmond. On July 19, 2024, Redmond was shot in broad daylight while delivering mail. The masked shooter fled in a stolen vehicle, later found torched to destroy evidence. Surveillance footage and witness accounts confirmed it was a planned execution, not a random act. The investigation took a shocking turn when a 15-year-old boy was arrested in Iowa months later and implicated key OTF members, directly connecting Durk to the murder. Investigators traced burner phone records, social media messages, and cash payments, building a compelling case against the rapper. The killing appeared to be an act of revenge for the alleged betrayal, a brutal warning about the consequences of crossing Durk. Despite Durk's rise to hip-hop stardom, his past kept pulling him back. His struggles began in 2011 when he was making moves with the Black Disciples, one of Chicago's most notorious gangs. Growing up in Inglewood, where gang culture was a harsh reality, Durk faced mounting pressures. By his late teens, survival, loyalty, and ambition became intertwined. That year, Durk faced serious legal trouble when police arrested him for gun possession. Authorities discovered a loaded firearm with a defaced serial number, a common street tactic used to keep weapons untraceable. The charge was significant, signaling to law enforcement that Durk's ties to the Black Disciples went beyond surface-level association. Durk did a brief stint in jail but found himself at a crossroads. On one side, he was a young father searching for a way out, and on the other, he was deeply entrenched in street life, bound by loyalty and gang codes. His 2011 arrest marked the beginning of a long string of legal challenges that would follow him into his music career. As Durk's star rose, so did the complexity of his public image. His music reflected raw street experiences, blending personal struggles with coded messages about life in the trenches. His lyrics became vivid snapshots of the dangers and decisions he faced daily. While the rap world celebrated Durk's authenticity, law enforcement saw his success as more than just art, they viewed it as evidence. His past affiliations brought him street credibility but also constant surveillance. Even today, his reputation continues to draw the attention of prosecutors and investigators, making it difficult for him to leave his past behind. Even as Lil Durk rose to rap stardom, the shadow of his 2011 arrest and alleged gang ties never truly disappeared. That early gun charge might seem like old news, but it set the stage for both his fame and the trouble that followed. By 2013, Durk was gaining traction in the Chicago rap scene. One early morning around 3 a.m., while in Inglewood, a neighborhood long plagued by gang activity, police responded to reports of a man with a gun. When officers arrived, they claimed to have seen Durk tossing a loaded .40 caliber handgun into a nearby car. The police recovered the weapon, charging him with unlawful use of a weapon by a felon, a serious offense given his past record. Durk's earlier 2011 arrest involved a firearm with a defaced serial number, a charge that already flagged him in the eyes of law enforcement. Though he managed to plead that case down, it marked him as someone the system wouldn't forget. The 2013 arrest underscored the tension in Durk's life, a rising rap star tied to Chief Keef and the Chicago drill movement, but also linked to the streets he couldn't seem to escape. To fans, the arrest solidified his street credibility. To law enforcement, it reinforced a narrative that he was more than just an artist, he was a product of Chicago's gang culture. Durk spent time behind bars after the arrest, forcing him to confront the path he was on. Despite his growing success, his history with street violence continued to complicate his public image. Fast forward to August 2024, and Lil Durk seemed determined to change the story. He appeared on Instagram looking more reflective than ever, expressing a desire to be seen not as a street figure but as a man, a father, and someone committed to his Muslim faith. It felt like more than just words, it was a genuine declaration of change. Durk made it clear he no longer claimed the streets. "I don't gangbang, I'm Muslim," he stated firmly on Instagram, urging his followers to understand this new chapter in his life. He acknowledged that while his music would still reflect his past, it wouldn't glorify gang ties or violence. His focus was on becoming a better man for himself, his family, and his fans. This shift wasn't sudden. Durk had publicly embraced Islam since 2020, but personal tragedies seemed to deepen his commitment. The loss of close friends like King Von and his brother Ding to gun violence hit hard, forcing him to reflect on the painful cycle he was caught in. His health struggles further pushed him toward change. In early 2024, Durk opened up about his time in rehab, sharing that he battled substance abuse and chose to clean up both physically and mentally. The experience was life-changing, not something he hid or felt ashamed of, but rather a vital step toward personal peace. Now, Durk's focus is clear: family, staying out of trouble, and creating positive change. Breaking free from the street culture that shaped him hasn't been easy, but he seems determined to rewrite his story for good. Durk's arrest on charges of murder for hire has caused even more controversy, with federal investigators citing everything from text messages to financial records in their case. The prosecution is claiming that the attack was deeply personal, rooted in the death of King Von in 2020. But Durk's defense is trying to separate him from the street persona that his music has often portrayed, arguing that he is being unfairly targeted because of his fame. They'll challenge the evidence, but the case against him is serious and includes alleged messages detailing plans and financial transactions tied to the murder plot. The timing couldn't be worse for Durk. Just weeks before his arrest, he was being celebrated for his contributions to the community. The Neighborhood Heroes Foundation had funded scholarships, youth programs, and grocery giveaways in underserved areas, signaling that Durk was truly shifting away from his past. But now, those efforts are overshadowed by these serious charges. Partnerships with his nonprofit have been cut, awards taken back, and public support is beginning to waver. For Durk's fans, this is a tough pill to swallow. Many have supported him through previous legal issues, believing in his transformation and his message of perseverance. But as the charges grow more serious, even his most loyal fans are starting to question whether the man behind the mic has truly left his past behind. The coming trial will be a crucial moment, not just for Durk's freedom, but for his legacy. His legal team faces a daunting challenge, one that could shape the future of his career and reputation. For a rapper who's built his name on overcoming the odds, this may be his toughest battle yet.